Skyrise, our review. Now, we're not going to teach you how to play the game. Rodney at Watch It Played has already done that masterfully. We'll put it right up here. You can watch that great video. Rodney is the best at teaching games. All right, Zucker John, what do you think? This is a game that I have been watching now for a couple of months, and I felt like this was going to be right up our alley. We've played it multiple times at 2 players, so this is basically a 2-player review, but I think we can extrapolate out as to what we might think at a larger player count. So I'm going to back off. Tell me what you think.
So I'll say as a 2-player game, this is I like the game for 2 players for sure, because there's multiple fronts, multiple things you can do. There's always choices you have, calculating what the other person's going to do. But in the end, you really don't know until you score at the end. Like, you could sit there and do the math in your head, but who's got that kind of time?
It's too much math.
Yeah, too much math.
Too much math.
How do I maximize my points? If you try to block the other person, you're going to be giving up your own points. You got to figure out that balance. I would be curious to see how this scales to a 4-player game, because there's so many different people on the board, so many more options available. I think it'd play much differently, but also if we were playing with Evil Jeff, for example, how he would be aggressive.
Right, aggressive, trying to be focused on area control.
That's it.
And I do think it would be an interesting dynamic and fun, though way less predictable. I feel like the 2 players has a chess-like feel to it, except it is not a true abstract no-luck game. You have items that are random each time you play. The placement of the chips for what you're scoring here is random. You don't know exactly what you're playing for here. There's enough here to make it so you cannot really calculate with certainty the best move at any given time.
True, and I would say also the cards you are dealt for to choose for the wonder,
right,
can greatly change how you play. In the first game we played off camera, I had some cards that I felt were great, and I didn't get them this time around. However, I was still able to get, due to some things I have here, still able to get 12 points over here.
15 points,
maybe,
actually.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you did very well with those. So, I agree with what you're saying. It seems like they were bad, but you don't know.
There's an old saying, and I don't know if you've ever heard this, you got to play the cards that are dealt you.
No, I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's a great saying, but I think it deals more with poker.
I think it's a bunch of horseshit.
Nevertheless, you've got to be smart. Some of these cards are capped at 12 points, something like that. There's one card I had last round where it affected the chain you played, which I got something like 16 points off of it. Great, but also you have to be playing with that strategy in mind early on.
And plus, I had no idea that you were going for the chain, even though the card was flipped up. So if you're not paying attention, and in a 3 and 4 player game, you really would kind of have to. But
you help each other monitor the other players, sure. But even then, if you tried to block me, at what cost? Keep me from getting 16 may keep you from getting another 10.
And with the extra players, you add another island, so it's going to scale. So I think that there's not going to be perfect information ever in this game, and I think they designed it that way. You feel like you have control because the auctioning is great. It reminds me of the game Raw by Reinhard Knizia, where none of the bidding is the same. So it's not like an auction where you're going around and raising and all that stuff. You're kind of raising, but you're raising with finite numbers. So it may be that you've blown your chances of guaranteeing a victory, whereas if you hold on to the highest number, you would have a guarantee. Of course, then you throw the wonders in. So it feels like you have control, but you don't have as much control as you think.
Yeah, so from a math perspective, one of the things I thought about earlier was the numbers seem kind of random on here. How many do you have that are more than I have? 2-player game, 3-player game, 4-player game. If you sit down and do the math, in order for each section to have, for me to have the higher number building over the same number you have. For 4 players, 3 players, and 2 players, there's got to be a total of 12 buildings. It's a multiple of all of those. If you count up the buildings, there are 12 buildings. So if we laid these out in color order, I bet you would have...
Same number?
Same number where the brown is higher for 4, the yellow is higher for 4, the green is higher for 4, and the gray is higher for 4. It's just, or 3, whatever the math is. But anyway, I felt they did a great job thinking that through. So when you and I are playing, I'm looking at yours, how's these always higher? No, you're higher 50% of the time. I'm higher 50% of the time.
Yep.
And we've got the ultimate trump. All right, when do you want to play that?
Right. No, I think that's fine. And it actually fits into the loose theme to the game. It's got this steampunk kind of feel to it, BioShock, Victorian looking thing, but we're building a city in the sky. It's almost like the magic, the alchemy type stuff. There's like this unknown involved in the chemistry of the game. And I think it kind of fits the aesthetic and the feel of the game. Fun factor wise, I thought it was great at 2 players. I think we would play this anytime. And I welcome 3 and 4 players here.
Yeah, I agree. I think like you and I could sit down and play this game anytime and be okay with it. It took us about, 25, 30 minutes to play?
Yeah, no, this is no more than a 45-minute game for 2 players, unless you have analysis paralysis,
right.
Which I always find remarkable in games where there's non-perfect information. What are you really doing?
Yeah.
You make the optimal move for right now, but you don't know if the optimal move right now even matters at the end of the game. I think we know enough about playing games, and if someone who plays games all the time and kind of understands when to AP, we talk about that on the channel oftentimes. You know that whatever you do here isn't going to make the ultimate difference. When it's the end of the game, it's the last turn, you're about to put the last piece down, then it matters because now you know what the options are.
Yeah, I could see with 3 players, with 2 players, we're always remaining engaged because I'm going next. With 3 players, I'm close enough. I could see how with 4, someone may drift off and, it's my turn. I need to come back up to speed real quick. I've zoned out. So the game may grow a little longer than what the scale would anticipate for 4, but that's just the nature of these types of games.
But if you're paying attention to what you're doing to win the game, you're really trying to make a bid here for something that you're okay with winning if nobody wants to take it, which is probably rare that no one's going to outbid you. But you're looking for where you really want to end up. If you're looking around the table, or especially in a 2-player game where it's easy because you have to keep these visible so your opponent can see. And you're like, okay, well, I know he could beat me twice. So if I go here and he beats me once, do I let him win? And then he starts, and then I really want this number. That's the way I was thinking about the games is, okay, I'm bidding for this. If I get it, is it going to be horrible?
Yeah.
And a few times I got stuck in getting something I didn't want, but it was a risk that I was willing to take. That's the nature of a bidding game. You always have the chance that you're going to lose the bid. And I think the bidding part of this kind of takes it to a different type of game. The bidding for the area control and set collection is kind of a cool way to acquire those things. It's like a mini game within the game and a resource management of the actual pieces you're bidding with. Because it's not like you're just using money and I can go all in. It's like, I don't have any pieces left. And it's also kind of a cool dynamic, again, reminding me of the game Raw, which I'm not sure you've played, where there at times in that game, if one person is out of bidding tiles, the remaining person gets to bid. But what they might be bidding on might not be worth getting.
Yeah.
So here you've got all those pieces left, but there's nothing to maximize, a benefit to you.
Yeah, so in our last game, I left this alone towards the end of the game because I knew you were going to run out at some point. So as long as I didn't bid here, I could come over here and things like that. So I had to play it to my advantage. With 4 players, one of the mechanisms I'd be interested to see, how many times do you run into, I win this because we've
run out of
hold
places.
it out, and I go here and I win by default, and I didn't have to go as high. So with 2 players, I think a lot of times it's so wide open, you rarely run into, I'm in an island, I win this by default. With 4, you could run along Snake and maybe find those little more.
But 4 is going to have double of the 2, so it should be the same amount of space.
Right. You got more bridges, but you run the ability to have a snake that cuts off its own head and say, okay, now buy some. I don't know. I'm just be curious to see if you run into that more often.
It does feel really good, though, to make a play where you're guaranteed to win the next one.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, that is the best feeling that I had playing the game.
For sure.
To me, I think this is an excellent auction, set collection, and area control type of game, which to me, there's not a lot of that going on. I really liked it. I like the way it looks, and this is just the standard retail edition. This isn't the super spectacular one, but the pieces feel great. The board looks great. Setup is really easy, and the game doesn't outstay the welcome for its fun. I feel like the amount of time we spent on this, and we played some games of it, was worth the time we put in. I don't feel like, oh man, I really wish that was going to end. I kind of wish I had a few more turns to optimize my points.
And I would say one thing I'd be interested in, and Finny Rob's going to go do the math and put it down here.
Yeah, right.
I won by
You're pointing way too much.
17 points here. At the end of the first round, neither of us got any of these. At the end of the second round, I had gotten several of these. Did you lose sight of, did you give up on these to go chase them out? And did this make the difference for me?
It definitely,
even though it helped, even though I was doing other things, because I know I got at least one lake, I got at least one blimp.
at least 6 of the points here were from that.
I think
so. You put that about 15, there,
yeah.
You know,
so things like that are. But that's the thing is, if I focused on this in the first round, I may not have been set up to do the 6 multipliers in the second round. So it's a play the cards that are dealt you. This is a great game for adjust your strategy based on what's happening in front of you.
And even though I lost, I still didn't feel like I was losing. I felt like I was in it.
I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, you lost
at 41.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway. Well, I think it's a great game. It met my expectations, possibly exceeded it, although my expectations were high.
Yeah, I'll say one other thing about this game is there are some games you play when you go home, you'll try to think through, lay in bed, think through.
What could I have done better?
And this one, the good news is it doesn't matter. The next game is completely different. You can't play the strategy any different. You can wipe the slate clean, go to bed, and come out and play it again fresh and new tomorrow.
That sounds like you're happy.
I love that.
Very good. Well, those are our thoughts about Skyrise. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out all of our other videos. Thanks for watching.